His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki, Shri Ram Nomi Mahotsava Ki, Goprimanande. All glories to their Samu devotees. All glories to their Samu devotees. All glories to their Samu devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Shri Gaunitai Ki. Well, devotees, I'm really happy to be here with you all. I first came to PE 1983. We drove through from Cape Town. We stayed in Uitenhage. I think we stayed in Maheshwar. Must have been, yeah, probably Maheshwar, because Purushottam's house was too small. But yeah, we stayed there. Just overnight we stayed, and then we came back a little later, still in 83, to have a festival there for Bhagavan Das, also in Maheshwar's, his car showroom, actually, yes. And it was nice. It was very nice. So since then, of course, come so many times. And, well, unfortunately, COVID messed things up a bit. And last year I could have come, but unfortunately, I should have come, but I couldn't come due to circumstances. But here we are, better late than never. And just let us chant and associate and hear and chant about Krishna and Lord Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama.
Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki.
Jai.
Right. So what we'll do, we will read through this. Well, there's 2 chapters actually in Bhagavatam focusing on Lord Ram. 9th canto, chapter 10 and chapter 11. The majority of the story is actually in chapter 10. And the thing is that Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted by all the devotees, the great devotees, and in our line, and in all the Vaishnav lines, Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as being authentic, 100%. Whereas so many other literatures actually, part of them got lost, or somehow things got a bit mixed up. Even like Valmiki Ramayana, there's a number of versions. There are versions which talk about Lord Ram apparently or supposedly praying, when he wanted to cross over to Lanka, they say he prayed to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva blessed him to cross over and be successful. But there are other versions of Valmiki Ramayana which don't mention that at all. So, you could say to some degree there's a lack of clarity. Of course, there are things which are confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, which are there in Valmiki Ramayana also. So, that's okay. And that's good. So it's safer in a sense, particularly where there's some doubt. There are different versions from amongst the different versions of Valmiki Ramayana, particularly where there's some sort of lack of clarity there of what may have happened or not happened. Best to stick with Srimad Bhagavatam because it's confirmed, fully confirmed, as being 100% authoritative. So even though the description is short, relatively speaking, 2 chapters, and I'm not sure, maybe 100 verses or something, and Valmiki Ramayana is in the vicinity of 25,000 verses. Bhagavatam, if you've got a Bhagavatam at home, Bhagavatam is around 15,000 verses. So the Valmiki Ramayana is, like what, 1/3 or 40% or something longer. It's a big book. It's a really big book. Of course, Mahabharata is 110,000 verses. It's the biggest book. It's the biggest book that there is, and the longest poem on this planet. So what we'll do, we'll go step by step through this chapter 10 of the 9th canto, which is titled The Pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. We'll go step by step through it over these 3 days, and we'll bring out different points here and there. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I imagine a number of you are fairly familiar, or maybe very familiar, with Ramayana. Are you very familiar?
Yeah.
You know it off by heart?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Maybe you should come and sit here. Yeah, so we'll do like that. And, if some of it you're already familiar with, and you may think, oh, it's the same thing again. Don't worry about that. Just hear it because it's transcendental. And, even if there's some repetition there to some degree, Prabhupada would say repetition of a good thing is good. So like this, let's just try to absorb the transcendental message, the transcendental descriptions, and if we listen very carefully, then we'll find we sort of enter into what's being described. It's an experience, it can be an experience like that. You sort of, suddenly you're there, in it, with Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. So, okay, let's begin then. 9th Canto, Chapter 10, The Pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. Let's begin with verse 2. I'll read the Sanskrit of the verse to start off with. Tasyapi Bhagavan Esha Sakshad Brahmamayo Hari Amsham Shena Chaturdagat Putra Tvam Prartita Surai Rama Lakshmana Bharata Shatrugna iti samgaya, being prayed for by the demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth Himself, directly appeared with His expansion and expansions of the expansion. Their holy names were Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrugna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in 4 forms as the sons of Maharaj Dasarath. And just to get a bit of a perspective on it, well, let me just mention one thing first. Being prayed for by the demigods, because there was, you could say, like a crisis, and not just sort of like a regular crisis. I mean, like in the world at the moment, how many crises are there? In South Africa, when is the next load shedding? Let's not talk about it. I went to India, and well, I actually went to Malaysia and Singapore and then India. I was in India for about 3 weeks or so. Then back to Malaysia for a couple of days to get the return ticket back, the return flight. Then Mauritius for a few days. And yeah, there, well, you know what? Are you ready? There was no load shedding. I'm serious. In India, there was no load shedding. Here, at least, they tell you about it. But no, it used to be bad in India. Those who have been like regularly going back, first time I went was 1976. Sure. Sometimes the power would just go off for days. Usually it wasn't that bad, but sometimes. And I sort of missed South Africa. Where's the load shedding? Anyway, that's just a joke. Don't worry. We got enough demons, but they were not like Ravana. Our current day demons, they're small time. Or what to speak of the Lord just flicking them away. Even Ravana could flick them away. Yeah, he was a big demon. Actually, he was Jai, from the pair Jai and Vijay from the Bhagavatam. Earlier in the Bhagavatam, what is it, 3rd canto, I think. Anyway, around their 3rd, 4th cantos, Jai and Vijay were gatekeepers, like they were security men. That's actually what they were for Vaikuntha. And it's a very interesting situation. They were not quite in Vaikuntha. They were just outside because they were guarding. So they had to be just outside to stop people from coming in. Otherwise, if they were inside, people could already come in before they'd stop them. So they were just outside, but they were outside. So their position was not exactly like your typical resident of the spiritual world. And it's a bit of a long story, but the 4 Kumars came. They're 4 sages, saintly people, but they have the mystic perfection that they can stop their bodies aging first, of the sons of Lord Brahma. from the beginning of the universe. And they got upset. So like I said, it's a long story, but they cursed them to fall down and become demons in this material world. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared on the scene and told all of them, I am going to modify the curse. Because the initial curse was, just go to the material world and that's it. End of story. So the Lord said, he acknowledged that you were trying to serve me, but you got it wrong. So what we'll do is, you go to the material world and you stay there. You can choose. He gave them the choice. Either 7 births as devotees or 3 births as demons, and then you'll come back. Either way, you'll come back to the spiritual world, or just by the door to the spiritual world. So they chose 3 births as demons. Now that's interesting, because their reasoning was, then we'll get back quicker. There are 4 types of Vaishnav liberation. I won't go into all the details, but for example, there is sarupya. You can get a rupa, or a form that looks like the Supreme Lord. In fact, in Vaikuntha, the Vaikuntha realm, all the men look like Lord Narayan, basically. And if you've read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you would have read how Gopakumar arrived at the entrance to Vaikuntha. And all these devotees were arriving from having been out preaching or doing different things. And they all look like the Supreme Lord. So Gopakumar, he thought they were all him, the Supreme Lord. So he's offering obeisances, my Lord, my Lord. And they were, each one would say, I am not the Lord. Oh, come on. So in the end, someone took him in and introduced him to the Lord. So the thing is that, like I said, it's a long story, but the thing is that they got cursed. Well, there's sarupya, you get a form like the form of the Lord. There's salokya, means you live on the same planet, or kind of like in the same vicinity as the Supreme Lord. So Jai and Vijay, they have Salokya Mukti. They want to be with the Lord, like geographically close. They're attached to having his association. Otherwise, so many devotees, like, we sing a song, Hari Harai Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha. It's quite a long song. In one of the verses, Narottam Das Thakur says, Tandara Charana Sevi, Bhakta Sanevas, Janame Hoy, E Abhilas. My Abhilas means my only desire is that Janame Hoy, birth after birth, I can be born in the company of devotees. That's all. Tandira Charana Sevi, and I can serve the lotus feet of the devotees. And you may know Lord Chaitanya in the 4th verse of Shikshastakam. He sings like that I don't want, I don't want money, a beautiful wife, followers. All I want is your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Janmani Janmani Shvare Bhavatad Bhaktiya Ahita Ki Twai. So, on the higher level of Krishna consciousness, it's not that people like Jaya and Vijay are not on a high level, with respect to all you nice devotees. They're on a much higher level than any of us can practically dream of. But these devotees like Narottam Das Thakur and the devotees of Vrindavan, as opposed to the devotees of Vaikuntha, the devotees of Vaikuntha, like the Jaya and Vijay, as we said, they were just thinking, we want to get back as soon as possible and be as close as possible. But others, like Narottam Das Thakur's singing, I don't mind, I don't care actually. I'm happy to take birth after birth, although must be in the association of devotees, must be. As long as I'm in the association of devotees, I'll just carry on taking birth after birth. And Lord Chaitanya, in that 4th verse of Shikshastakam, says basically exactly the same thing. Janmani Janmani Shvare, birth after birth. To be engaged in devotional service. Yes, so anyway, this Ravana, Prabhupada mentions a bit later on in this chapter that the word Ravana means one who makes people cry. He was very vicious and abusive person, extremely. Yeah, really extremely. And he was terrorizing even the universe, not just the Earth planet, although he was on the Earth planet. He had a special plan to build a staircase to the moon, because he knew the moon is a heavenly planet. It's better, like more luxurious, etc., than this planet. So he wanted to go there, but he didn't want to have to do all the religious performances, all the sacrifices and yajnas for many years, maybe even some lifetimes, which would normally give someone access to a heavenly planet. He thought, no, I'll just go for it. I will do it my way. There was a song, one of my father's favorites. Frank Sinatra. Oh, that's right. So he wanted to do it his way. And actually, it doesn't really say whether he did it or not, but he definitely wanted to do it. So, now we've got demons and, going back before our births, I think of most or all of us probably, like Second World War time, Hitler, Stalin, these people, they were really bad. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead didn't come to wipe them out. The Supreme Lord came to kill Ravana, but not Stalin or Hitler or any of the current day ones, some of whom are no better than Stalin or Hitler, basically. Yeah. Actually, one thing Srila Prabhupada said was that it's not a good idea to read newspapers because, newspapers, there's a lot of emphasis on politics, what's going on around the world, and, Israel and Russia and Ukraine, all these heavy situations, Prabhupada said it's not a good idea really to look at the newspapers, because you see all these photos of these big politicians. And Prabhupada said, just by seeing photos of their faces, you lose all your pious credits. You lose all your piety, because they're just so kind of saturated with sin and enviousness and viciousness. Yeah. Yes, so the Lord did not bother coming during the Second World War. And he hasn't bothered coming now. Of course, he came 500 years ago as Lord Chaitanya to give us the process. But now, I mean, what we're reading about here, the verse says, the Lord directly appeared with his expansion, that's Lakshman, and expansions of the expansion, that's Bharat and Shatrughna. There's a whole, you could say, hierarchy, I suppose, of different forms of the Lord. The original form is Krishna, next is Lord Balaram, and then you've got, well, just different levels of forms. Like in Vaikuntha, Narayan, and so on like that. And then in this world, Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu. These are, well, he is the Lord. Balaram's his first expansion. And others are, many of them are expansions of expansions. And some are expansions of expansions of expansions. It can get, it's quite a sophisticated subject. Let's read the purport here just to get a focus on things. Lord Ramachandra and his brothers, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, are all Vishnu Tattva, not Jiva Tattva. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands into many, many forms. Advaitam, Achutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. That's Brahma Samhita, verse 33. Although they are one and the same, Vishnu Tattva has many forms and incarnations. Krishna is the head of the Vishnu Tattva. It's just an interesting little point. It's not called Krishna Tattva. It's called Vishnu Tattva. And Krishna is a member of Vishnu Tattva, but he's the head because he's the original. And all these different forms, like, let me mention one thing. Srila Rupa Goswami, in one of his books called, Lagu Bhagavatamrita. He talks about, he has one chapter about the different avatars. And he says, of all the different forms of the Lord, many, unlimited number, first is Krishna. Second is Lord Ramachandra. Third is Lord Nrsingadev. That's interesting, isn't it? In the hierarchy. First is Krishna, then Lord Ram, and then Lord Nrsingadev. And as Prabhupada says here, they are one and the same. You may know, if you've read Brahma Samhita, that there's a verse which says that Krishna is like a candle which is lit, and all his expansions and other forms and avatars, etc., they're also candles, but they've been lit from him. Yeah. So they're dependent on him for their existence, or like that you can say. So they are one and the same, but here we've read about expansions of the expansion, which would tend to indicate lesser than the original. The thing is this, that they're actually all forms of Krishna. They're not forms of other people. But in these different forms, what happens is Krishna displays his potencies to different degrees. That's the difference. Not that some are just less. They just don't have as much power or whatever. But he sort of withholds some of his qualities and potencies in some of these forms. Otherwise, they're one and the same. That's what he says, Prabhupada says right here. And that example of the candles is there, and it's said there that all the candles are the same. They're all the same. And once they're all lit, you can't just say, there's the original. Because they all look the same. Because they all are the same. So, but it's just that Krishna displays his potencies, his shaktis, his qualities, his everything fully. And the others show them less. That's the main thing. It's the main thing. Except the only difference really is the type of form of the Lord called Shatyavesh avatar. Because they are generally, or practically always, humans who've been empowered by some particular power of the Lord, basically. Like Vyasadeva is empowered with the literary potency. And then, like I mentioned, Krishna, then Ramachandra, then Nrsimhadev. And so Nrsimhadev embodies or manifests in his form as Nrsimhadev. The Lord manifests his anger, his extreme and his complete anger. It's not that he doesn't have, say, the beauty that Krishna has, but he's not showing it. Therefore, we do not read of Lord Nrsimhadev having a rasa dance. Did you hear of it? No. Because he withholds that part of his nature, doesn't show it. He's got the power. He's not lacking, because they're one and the same. But they manifest to different degrees. Interesting point. So, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita verse 39, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan. The Lord is situated in many forms such as Ram, Lakshan, Bharat and Shatrughna, and these forms may exist in any part of his creation. All these forms exist permanently, eternally, as individual personalities of Godhead, and they resemble many candles, all equally powerful. You should note these things. It's a bit of a science, yeah. They resemble many candles, all equally powerful. Lord Ramachandra, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, who, being Vishnu Tattva, are all equally powerful, became the sons of Maharaj Dasarath in response to prayers by the demigods. Let's read on. I'll just read the translations. O King Parikshit, The transcendental activities of Lord Ramachandra have been described by great saintly persons who have seen the truth. Because you've heard again and again about Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Mother Sita, I shall describe these activities only in brief. Please listen. To keep the promise of his father intact, Lord Ramachandra immediately gave up the position of king and, accompanied by his wife, Mother Sita, wandered from one forest to another on his lotus feet, which were so delicate that they were unable to bear even the touch of Sita's palms. So the verse says, to keep the promise of his father intact. You know that story. What happened? You know that story. Anyway, you know that story. We'll tell you. That Dasarath, the father of Lord Ram, the father of all four of them, he was taking part in a battle, but what happened was that one of the wheels of his chariot was about to fall off, but it was kind of like a sort of tricky technical construction, and the particular wife, Kaikeyi, she knew how to fix chariots. She fixed it very quickly. Otherwise the chariot would have collapsed and he would have probably been killed. So she saved his life. And he said, I must give you a benediction. I must. Just tell me what you want. It's yours. If I'm capable, just tell me. And she said, well, that's kind of you, but, I'm okay at the moment, but in the future sometime, if, something really comes to mind, then I'll ask you. And he said, yes, you can do that. And whatever it is, if it's within my power, it'll be yours. So as, I certainly think you would know, Kaikeyi, he had 3 wives. And this Kaikeyi, who had saved his life that time, she had a servant girl, you could say, who was physically, she was a hunchback and, serious physical disability. And the problem was that her mind was also sort of a hunched mind, envious, nasty mind. And so she turned Kaikeyi against Lord Ram. Lord Ram was the oldest, and he was going to become the king. There's no question of anything else happening at all. But the servant, what was her name? What was her name? Mantara.
Mandala.
Like that, Mantara. Like that. She convinced Kaikeyi, who was the mother of Bharat, that if Ram becomes the king, then Bharat's had it. Ram will just have him killed, just so he can get everything. So what you must do, your husband owes you this boon. So, the time is coming. You must use your boon and tell him, I want my son Bharat to become the king and Ram to be exiled for 14 years. So she did that. Lord Ram was the next day going to be installed as what they call, at least, well, it's Yuvaraj. Yuvaraj in Sanskrit or Hindi. Yuvaraj means the youthful king, basically. Yeah. King is a young person, means he's being prepared to actually become the king. Prince Regent in English means, yeah, he's going to be the king, but there's a period of preparation first. So next day Ram was going to be installed, and Mantra said, this is your chance, you must do it now. If you don't do it now, you'll lose your opportunity. And so Kaikeyi told Dasarath that this is what I want. And there was nothing he could do. He had to fulfill her desire, even though he was just totally devastated. And actually he died shortly after from grief, just from grief. Yeah. So, but now it says here, we read, that Lord Ram, to keep the promise of his father intact, Lord Ram immediately gave up the position of king and then went to the forest. So the thing is, as Valmiki Ramayana describes at least, that Kaikeyi, now that Dasarath has agreed, and Mantra went to Lord Ram and sort of gloated, if you know what I mean. Ha ha ha. You have just lost out big time. You have just lost everything. You've been exiled. Your father's exiled you. And Bharat's going to become the king, so tough luck for you. And they were expecting that Lord Ram would be all upset. What? But tomorrow I was going to be installed. Tomorrow. And this has been the plan all along. You can't do this. And they said, we can and we are. And this is the order of your father. You're exiled for 14 years. And, the description is there that Bharat, when he found out, Bharat was going to kill his mother. In fact, they beat Mantra. He beat Mantra, or either he or Lakshman, so badly she almost died. And Bharat said, I would have killed my mother. The only reason I didn't do it was because I knew Ram would not have appreciated it. Therefore I didn't do it. Otherwise I would have just killed her. I mean, there's all sorts of intricacies behind the scenes there. And Ram, when he was told, and they expected him to get all heartbroken and disturbed and distressed like that, he didn't at all. As the verse says, he immediately gave up the position of king. He told them that, if it's my father's order, I'll do it. What, you expect me to be upset? My father's order is my life. If he orders me, I'll just walk into fire. No problem at all. So therefore, to keep the promise of his father intact, Lord Ramachandra immediately gave up the position of king and wandered in the forest. So therefore, Lord Ramachandra, he's Krishna. As we've said, of course, he's Krishna. He's not actually another person. But he's Krishna manifesting himself in a not very limited way, but somewhat limited way. Krishna is known as Leela Purushottama, the Supreme Person who has the special feature or characteristic. His leelas, his pastimes, are just out of this world, just the best by far. Then Lord Chaitanya is called Prema Purushottama. Purushottama means the Supreme Person. He's the Supreme Person who is exhibiting, displaying love more than anyone. Ram is described as Maryada Purushottama, the Supreme Person who sticks to the rules and regulations and what's right, but not what's wrong. Never do anything wrong. Yeah. Always morally, completely upstanding. Whereas, Krishna, he's a bit mischievous sometimes. I mean, it's all transcendental and one needs to understand that, how it works like that. But from a certain perspective, Krishna looks pretty mischievous, actually. Yeah. Whereas Lord Ram is very honorable and upstanding, righteousness personified. So Maryada means, well, it indicates he does not step over any rules or regulations. Maryada Purushottama. Let us continue. I wonder, could you investigate how is Prasadam doing? You didn't hear that. I should have told you not to listen. It's just... Okay. It'll taste better if we wait a little longer. Hunger is the best chef. If you get a bit more hungry, it'll taste better when you get there. So the Lord was also accompanied by Hanuman, or by another monkey, Sugriva, the king of the monkeys, and by his own younger brother, Lord Lakshman, both of whom gave him relief from the fatigue of wandering in the forest. Having cut off the nose and ears of Shurapranaka, thus disfiguring her, the Lord was separated from Mother Sita. He therefore became angry, moving his eyebrows, and thus frightening the ocean, who then allowed the Lord to construct a bridge to cross the ocean. It's interesting, Bhagavatam does not refer to Lord Ram worshipping Lord Shiva in order to get some mercy to cross the ocean. Subsequently, the Lord entered the kingdom of Ravana to kill him, like a fire devouring a forest. May that Supreme Lord Ramachandra give us all protection. That is a blessing. It's quite rare in the Bhagavatam that you find verses which have at the end, may somebody bless, protect us, be kind to us. But this is one of those verses. It's called a phalastuti, a stuti, a prayer which is offering some fruit to us, the fruit of protection. In the arena of the sacrifice performed by Vishvamitra, Lord Ramachandra, the king of Ayodhya, killed many demons, rakshasas, and uncivilized men who wandered at night in the mode of darkness. May Lord Ramachandra, who killed these demons in the presence of Lakshman, be kind enough to give us protection. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ke.
Jai.
Shri Ram Navami Mahotsava Ke.
Jai.
Okay, devotees, we're just getting started. We'll continue tomorrow. So please come along. As they say, be here or be square. So you must be here, and we'll continue, and it gets really interesting from here on in. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. So thank you once again, Maharaj, for visiting us and gracing us with a beautiful class. So part 2 is tomorrow.